Hey, what's up guys? This is 3D Bonfire back with another amazing tutorial, and I just updated my Cinema 4D to the latest version 2025.2, and in addition I also updated Redshift to 2025.4. And in this little lesson I want to talk about the new Open PBR shader in Redshift. I guess that in the future I will use this one instead of the standard shader. They work pretty much the same in the setup, so you get pretty similar options, but yeah, I just wanted to see how this one is different and play with this one a little bit, just to give you some informations on this one. This one is of course also physically based, but this seems to be the industry standard created by Adobe and Autodesk, and this is optimized for CGI, and it seems like that this one is even better for realism than the standard shader. Yeah, I'm getting all of these informations, by the way, by Maxon's latest live recording about the updates in Cinema 4D and Redshift, and Ellie from Maxon was also talking about the Open PBR shader, but I just wanted to give it my own try. Alright, and I'm sorry that this is kind of a similar content that you also get from Maxon, but it was just so inspiring for me, so I also wanted to show you this image here, which Ellie also showed you already. But just to give you like the basic information before we go into the shader, I just wanted to let you know, in your shader the basic separation you first make is between a dielectric base and a metallic base. So when I would just fire up the Open PBR shader, you can see that these options here, they should look pretty much to something that you already recognize from the standard shader. But I just wanted to, yeah, maybe just go into really the basics just for beginners. So the first separation you make in your material is between a base, like a diffuse glossy material that you can, for example, already see here. This should be like the most standard material that you can think of, but then you make a separation if you turn this one into a metal shader. Now this is full metal and it just behaves different. All right, and I just want to give you some profound basics here that you kind of understand what you are doing. So you make a separation between a dielectric base, which is then differentiated into those three options, and a metallic material. And if you go down the non-metal material way, like this one, let's just put this one to something a bit more grayish, something like that one, that you can see it better. Now if you go with zero metalness, I mean, of course you can also mix this one in with percentages, but for now let's just keep this one clean. Then you make the difference between a translucent material, this is your glass material, this one, the subsurface, is for example your wax material, and your standard glossy diffuse that you can already see here in the background. And because this image is just so beautiful and inspiring, I just go through it quickly. So on top, then the next thin layer here, this is the thin film that you can also find here in your Open PBR material. All right, we talk about this one later. And then on top of the thin film, you can put an additional coating, okay, like a shiny additional reflection, for example. And then on top of all of this one, you put the fuzz, and the fuzz is the new sheen. So in the standard material, this would be called sheen, but the fuzz is just like little micro surface detailed super short hair, for example. But you can also think about this one like a dust layer on top of it, which is just making it look, for example, like a reflection on a velvet curtain, or on like a peach with the little fuzzy surface hair. So yeah, this image was just so amazing, I also had to share it. So I would say let's just play with this one a little bit. And I mean, you can see here now we have a diffuse material. Let's just change the color there. This is looking nice. And if you would want to go more for a really super rough stone, then you can also just put this one to 1, I would say. Let's see if this one is changing much. Doesn't look like intense. Yeah, maybe it's breaking up the surface a little bit, making it even more rough. But anyway, for now I will keep this one at 0. Let's go to the specular, and this is just working like in your standard material. So for most of you guys, this one will be a boring repetition, but let me do it anyway. If you go up with the IOR, now you can see you can increase how the reflection on this one is behaving. You could even go crazy to values like this one to turn it almost into a metal shader. I mean, the similarities are definitely there when you put this one to 1. 1. Now this one is a metal. Okay, I mean, like, it's behaving different, but I just wanted to mention that you can go up to unnatural values with the IOR to just create something artistic, inspiring for you. But I would say for now, let's keep this one more basic, put the roughness to 0. Now you can see that this one is very glossy and shiny, but of course you can also make the roughness very rough so that this feels super soft. Yeah, like almost like a stone. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure how this one is changing when you put the specular roughness to 1. So this one is super rough, and how the diffuse roughness is actually adding to this one. Let me put this one to 1. Yeah, but it seems like now this is breaking up the light even more and it looks even more rough, but I could be wrong. Let me put this one back to 0. Oh, definitely. Okay, I'm sorry to get the basics wrong. This one is definitely also making the surface even more rough, like a little bit of a sand or a stone or something like that. So if you want to go really crazy with the roughness, you can increase this one in addition and it will reflect like it's an even more rough surface. Okay, but for now I will keep this one at 0 and I want to put this one back to 0.5, for example. Let's now go to the transmission. So if you remember from this image from Autodesk's manual for Arnold, actually, then you can see now we can make the separation between a transmissive material, a subsurface, and a glossy diffuse material, which we basically have if we don't activate the transmission or the subsurface. So right now this is glossy diffuse, but now we can make the difference and turn this one into a glass shader, and you can see that this one is perfectly working. And I'm sorry that my computer is not the fastest. Okay, otherwise this one would clean up even faster, but I think you still get the idea here. So now this one is a glass shader, and I mean, this one is like a milk glass almost. So this one is pretty rough. Let's just reduce the roughness to something which is more to a clean glass, to something like this one. Now you can see that this is just a very nice glass with interesting reflections and breakups here and there in the glass. This is just very nice. And now you can just get different glass looks if you also play with the IOR. So let me just put this one to 2. Now I would say like this one has the appearance of something which is even more solid, maybe bigger. Okay, so you get also super nice reflections. I think like this one in that case, even though that I think like a value of 1.5 is more natural, this is just giving me something that is pleasing me in an artistic way. Okay, so I like this one from an art direction standpoint, but let me put this one back to 1.5 just for the comparison. Yeah, I just think like this one is not that interesting. Let me also just test the value which is even lower. All right, that's also interesting, but now you can see that the light will just not get such a strong bend inside of the object. So this one is getting flatter and flatter. So I would say I test another value there. And I mean, like this one is heavily dependent on the scene and the camera angle, but I just like what is happening here, so I will keep this one at 1.8. and in the transmission, much of this one should ring a bell for you because this is pretty similar to the standard material. Let me just jump over to the standard material. You can see that there is not a big difference. This one seems to be a bit more reduced. Let me put in a dispersion just to show you how beautiful this is. When I put this one to 1, then you kind of get the subtle rainbow effect. You can also play with different intensities here of the weight, but it seems like that this one is not making it more interesting, so I will keep this one at 1. But then you can also play with this value. Let's put this one to the maximum value, which is interestingly 70. This is not intensifying it. I think like it's even getting weaker, but I'm not exactly sure. Let's put this one to 1. And yeah, you should definitely also try like this really extreme values to the left here. Okay, this is very interesting. I want to even go lower. Let's see what's happening with 0.5. And it seems like that then the dispersion is just getting more spread out over the whole surface, which is kind of interesting. So if you want to just play with this one in an artistic way, then you can definitely also try like these crazy values. But for now, let me put this one to 1.5, for example. And yeah, I'm just really liking what's going on here. Of course, when you want to get like a more realistic glass, I think you want to play with the depth value there. So for now, I just want to get rid of dispersion, and let's say we want to, for example, create a red glass there. Now you can see like the red tint all over your material is pretty much the same. If you just want to go a little bit more realistic, you should play with a depth value there. You can see now this is just acting differently depending on how deep your object is at certain points here. So for example, down there, because this one is thinner, this is already getting almost rid of all of its colors, but because of this one is more thick, you get more still of the reddish tint, and I think it's also a good option, but maybe I'm not an expert on this one. But I think you should at least give this color something, maybe a more saturated version of your original color to, let me just see this one with a black. Okay, I'm not sure. I think like you should give this one a little bit of a tint. But as I said, most of the times I'm just playing with this one like an artist. So I'm not sure if this one is ultra realistic, but I always feel better when I just give this one a similar color to my original color. Let's put this one to 100 just to see what's happening here. Okay, like this one is interesting. I'm right now not even sure if this one is super realistic. Let's put this one to 0. Yeah, now once again, like the red is all over the place the same. So let me correct myself. It's definitely more realistic when you work with a depth value there to get a realistic behavior like this one. And I mean, just look at those areas. This is looking very realistic and super nice. Also what's happening here. So definitely work with a depth value when you work with transmission to just get a more interesting result. But now let's just jump over to the subsurface. And I mean, for most of you guys who are used to work with the standard material, this is pretty similar to the workflow that you had before. But let me for now put this one to a subsurface material. And yeah, like you now think that this one is subsurface, but it's actually not. It's still a transmissive material. So I think you have to definitely put this one to 0 so that now you activate the subsurface parameters. And this one is also completely overwriting the diffuse properties that you had up there. So for example, let's just tint this one to a crazy blue, but I think that this one doesn't have any impact on your shader. Now let's put this one to green. I think you could even put this one to 0 and it will not change here. So in the subsurface, as you already know, like let's just make this one for the beginning to an interesting color. You can think about this one is like the top color, which you see all over the place. Let's put this one to red. And then this one is like the color which is happening in the inside when the light is penetrating into your object. So let's put this one to 10. Now you should get more of those areas, but maybe it's not that easy to see the result with this shader ball. So let me just see if there is also like a more basic shader ball. I just make this one invisible and let's just see. I think like this one is a little bit of a reduced shader ball where we can see the subsurface just a bit more easy. And maybe let me just put this one to a bluish tint on the outside and let's put the inside to something greenish. Okay, so you can see what is happening here. Let's make this one to 50. Now this one is getting a lot of subsurface parameter. It seems like here it's still darker, which is kind of interesting. And I don't fully understand why those areas are still that dark. Maybe it's just how the object is subdivided here and what is happening in the inside, because all of these ones are single objects. So I'm a little bit confused why this one is still that dark. Let's put this one to 100. Now it should get pretty white, but still we have like these darker areas. That's interesting. Let's put the default color of the object to white. And I'm curious what is happening when I put this one also to a grayish tint. So still it's giving me darker areas there, which is kind of interesting. I wasn't expecting that, but maybe I could be totally wrong. Maybe this is just how subsurface is working, but you can see this one is also looking super realistic, even though that I wasn't expecting these darker areas. That's very nice. Let me just play with this one in an artistic way. So it looks like, yes, what you are getting now inside of the object in the subsurface, I think like the blue that you get there is like the opposite color of what you set here. So I guess when I would set this one to blue, now you get more of a reddish orange tint inside of it. So this is how it's working. But I think like if you want to work also in a more realistic way, like I did it up there, it is a good option maybe to color pick the color there. And I think like this one could be probably you want to go for the same color or maybe something that is a little bit more brighter or a bit more darker. But this one is just depending on your shot, I would say. And I always play with this one just more in an artistic way. So I think like you get the idea. I'm still a little bit confused why this one is behaving in a way that I wasn't expecting, but let's not hold ourselves back from that. I think it's just looking super cool. So that's the main point. So I think like everything should be fine. Let me see what else we have here in the shader. So down there, the fuzz is the new sheen. So it's like the same thing here. Let's put this one to 1. And now you can see like a thin layer there. I think you should put this this one maybe to a red tint. Now you can see this one better, and this will just work great with curtains, in general with fabrics. So this is looking nice. I want to just put this one to blue. Okay, that's also nice. You can put this one to 1, then it's reaching all over the object. So now this is spreading more around the object. Let's put the base color of the object to something reddish. But yeah, you can see like the sheen, or let's call it fuzz, is now pretty strong on this object. Actually, you can see better when I put it down like that. And I think it will also help when I make the object in itself more rough. But yeah, you can see like the fuzz is pretty nice. This is all working as you would expect. The coat, it's also the same. Let's put a coat on top of it. This is like an additional reflective layer here on top of your specular that you set up there. So now you could put the coat to, let's put this one to 3. Now you can see that this is a very reflective additional layer on your object there. And I think the darkening is new. This one is interesting. When I would put this one to 0, then this one is not sucking out energy as an additional layer, but I think it would be physically more accurate if this one is just reducing the light intensity on your object beneath the coat, on your shader, on your material beneath this additional layer. Okay, so I think like this is an additional new setting to make it even more realistic. But of course, this is also an artistic choice, so you can put this one to 0. And let me just see this once again without the coating. Okay, now you can see it's pretty rough, and it also has like the fuzz on top of it. This is almost looking like your couch or something like that. But then definitely the coating is making this one super nice with its additional layer of reflections. And now I think I even like to suck out the energy here, because it would be just more physically accurate if this additional layer will make the light interaction with your layer beneath it just a bit more reduced. This is a super nice option. I'm just curious what is happening when I tint this one. Okay, so okay, I understand it. Now the coating in itself will get like this additional color. Let's see what's happening when I put this one to 0. Okay, and I just want to see how this one is looking when I reduce this one, when I put it up again. Yes, of course, now this additional coating layer has also its color, but you can definitely just play with this one in interesting ways. Now you can see when we set it up like this, you can just create very interesting results here. I just put this one back to white, and you are back to the start. All right, this one is super nice. I think we already talked about the thin film, if I'm correct. If I'm not, then let me just quickly do it. Okay, so let's get rid of the coating. Let's see what the thin film is doing. And I think therefore it's a good idea to deactivate the fuzz, and maybe we want to just go for a little bit of a darker material just to see this one better. I also want to make it a bit more reflective, make it a little bit more glossy. And let's see. Okay, I have the feeling like I talked about this already, but you can see without the thin film, you don't have like this additional oily film on your object. Okay, when I put this one to 1, now I can see like a color breakup there. It's almost like this one was dipped into something oily, and now you get an interesting color breakup, a gradient there. It's also nice to see it there. And let's just see, when I put this one to 2, now this is getting more intense, but it's also getting more into like the same color here. When you would go down with this one, yeah, then you will get a little bit more of the rainbow effect. Let me just see what happens when I go really low. Then it's even more obvious. I just want to put this one to 1. Okay, 1 isn't working. So once again, I would say use this one in an artistic way. Just play with this one, test different values. It seems like when you go higher with it, then it will get more towards a white thin film. But when you go lower with it, you get different colors. And of course, in addition to this one, you also want to change the thickness of the film to see how this one is changing your result. So it seems like when I go down here, then you get more of the colors. But yeah, you can see, just click around and you will get something interesting. Then move it a little bit more until you get exactly the film that you want. But for now, let's get rid of this one. And this one is pretty self-explanatory. Let's put this one to 1. Let's put this one to 100. Okay, it seems like I have to go really high with this one until it's really glowing. But this one shouldn't be a surprise for you. And then the geometry, this one is a specific thing here. The thin wall is for certain scenarios with your glass setup. But I would say, you know what, I think that we basically talked about everything relevant here. Of course, there are way more things to explore, and then you can build complex shader setups here with your nodes. But these were the basics, I would say, about the new PBR shader. As I said, this is the industry standard set by Adobe and Autodesk, and I just wanted to quickly compare it to the standard shader, but it seems like that there are no big surprises. I especially like the Fuzz because it feels like this one is just giving me a little bit more interesting results than the Sheen before, but honestly I could be wrong on this one. Maybe it's pretty much the same. I also like in the coating we have like this darkening area so that the coating layer will suck out energy, and to just get more realistic results with this option. And probably I forgot some details here, but overall this PBR shader should be feeling very comfortable for you if you worked with the standard shader before. And actually in this tutorial I also wanted to test some PBR material on a soft body simulation like this one, or on one of these cloth simulations here. Okay, this is just looking really nice. So these are topics that I'm just going through right now on my Patreon, just one of the topics and cloth stuff. But yeah, I think like this tutorial is already way too long, so I will put this additional testing with shaders, I guess, like into my Patreon. So I would say thank you guys for your time. See you in the next tutorial. Bye everyone.